welcome to the Human Up podcast. I'm your host, Dave Marlon, and today I'm honored to have Larry Reed on the show with us. Welcome, Larry.
Thanks, Dave. The honor is mine to be with Human Up.
Right on. It's totally appropriate that somebody who is using the Poverty Stoplight to run Thrive Lights, this incubator slash tool that is being leveraged through the United States and really throughout the world to help move people out of poverty. I love the time we spent talking about the vehicle, and if we should probably start with a couple things. One, could you tell me quick, who is Larry Reed?
I've worked all my life in helping other people realize their potential in different ways. So it started in working in microfinance. So I worked with a group called Opportunity International, which is a global microfinance group. Lived in Zimbabwe for 5 years, setting up banks for people who didn't qualify to be in regular banks so they could get loans and start small businesses. So I became the CEO of that organization, and we established banks in Africa and Europe, Russia, and Latin America. And so then after I left that, I went to work with Muhammad Yunus, who was a Nobel Peace Prize winner for the Grameen Bank in Bangladesh. And we were working on the Microcredit Summit campaign, which was helping other countries adopt microfinance practices. And then from there, that's where I learned about the Poverty Stoplight. We were trying to make sure that microfinance stayed focused on working with people in poverty and helping them move out of poverty. So we're looking for tools who measured the poverty levels of their clients and what worked in helping them get out. And that's where I came across Martine Burt in his work with the Poverty Stoplight. And we had Martine come and speak at all of our global gatherings. And then he eventually asked me, he said, I want to bring this to the US. Will you help me do that?
Wow, that's exciting. To bring everybody up to speed, a couple things. I know before this meeting, I used to be the CEO of an insurance company. I had to Google what micro insurance was and micro banking. Could you discuss those parameters?
So I can tell you best by with a story of a client we had in Zimbabwe. She was one of our first clients there. She borrowed about $200 she had a little stall on the back of her house where she sold little grocery items and soaps and things like that. So people would come by every day and buy stuff from her. So she paid back that loan, got another loan to have she got a bigger place on a major walking path. And then she saw that some of the teenagers were getting in trouble. So somehow she got these old Pac-Man machines and she installed them next to her grocery store. And so she could watch the teenage girls as they came and played. She taught all the people in her church how to run businesses. When I left the country 5 years later, the board was meeting because she had, they were having to increase their largest loan size. So she started with $200. Now she needed $10,000 because she'd become the Coca-Cola distributor for her community, and she needed a truck to deliver all the bottles. And so they had to, their largest loan had been $5,000. They increased it to $10,000 for her. Later, she came back to the board and said, I want you to become a bank, because we started as just a credit operation, just giving loans. And she said, I want you to become a bank so I can save my money with you. And they said, well, there are other banks in the country. Well, why don't you go to Barclays Bank and save your money there? And she said, when I was a poor woman and I tried to get a loan, Barclays Bank wouldn't even let me in the door. And now that I have money, I want to save it with you so it can go to other women who were poor like me. So that's what microfinance is. It's helping people the banking system shuts out and helping them realize all the gifts they have within them.
and I heard micro was $200 to 5,000, maybe in some cases 10,000. So
When you talked
below
about
the normal.
insurance, we
Yeah.
we so one of the things we found then was, not only did people need access to loans, but they needed access to saving. They needed a place to where their money was
Oh,
safe. But then we saw that people often had, just like with regular insurance, people had things happen. They could lose something, it could be stolen, a death in the family, things like that that would set them back. And so we had this brilliant guy who'd come out of the reinsurance business working with us, Richard Leffley, and he created the very first microinsurance organization, which we spun off into a separate organization eventually. But it was so that poor people would have access to the same sort of protection that you and I are used to.
wow, that's awesome. I spent 15 years in the reinsurance business.
Oh yeah,
And I have the fondest memories of flying to Lloyd's and
right,
going around from desk to guest to get different coverages placed
right,
on the reinsurance side. That was amazing. So I'm not surprised that you found a very creative and aggressive person from
right.
the reinsurance field to be able to
Well,
get that done.
and the thing he did that really made it take off was he kept trying to figure out because the problem with insurance is people don't want to pay for something that they don't know if it's going to happen or not. It's only when it happens that you want to pay for it, and then the insurance company doesn't want to cover you. Um, so he was trying to think who would be willing to pay for this sort of coverage, who has a business interest in doing it. And in Africa, phones work differently. You don't have a monthly subscription on a phone. You pay for your airtime, and when you run out, you buy more airtime. And
Okay.
you can switch carriers back and forth. You don't have to go with one carrier. It's just whoever is selling airtime the cheapest is who you buy it from when you run out of airtime. And so what he found was phone providers, in order to prevent churn of customers, were willing to pay for the microinsurance as a benefit if someone stayed with them and continued buying their
Ah.
phone cards from them. The phone company would pay the microinsurance. And so what started with a few thousand clients suddenly became millions of clients that we were serving around the world.
So that was an allied benefit to try to get some customer loyalty to the
Right,
phone service because they
right.
had this micro insurance with it. Well,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. Um, but again, one more thing on framing. Um,
Yep.
I found the poverty stoplight was this grid of, I don't, you tell me, was it 50 or 100?
50,
Um,
yeah.
it was 50 items that um, you found as we move people through them, they were more likely to self manage out of poverty.
Right.
And you found that could you give me an example of two or three of these items?
Um, so it's things like, the things you expect. I have enough income. I have savings. I have access to health care, but also things like I have motivation. I have a network of friends that support me. I have positive feelings about my life and where I'm going. And the interesting thing is, these indicators were not done by a group of experts coming together and saying what's the most important thing for people as they move out of poverty. The person who founded it, Martin Burt, um, he went to his clients, these micro enterprise clients, and asked them, "What would your life look like if you weren't poor?" And these are all the things they described. Well, if I was not poor, I would have a decent bathroom in my house. I would have a good place to cook food. My children would be in school. I'd have a roof over my head that didn't leak. I'd have running water in the house, but also things like I would have goals and I would be pursuing them.
Hmm.
I would have self confidence. So these indicators came from the people themselves, so that when people were assessing themselves, they saw themselves in the indicator. Yeah, these are the things that are important to me. And so that's why it took hold. It became part of how people recognized this is what a better life would look like for me.
And that you found, or Martine found, that if I looked at my poverty stoplights or my thrive light, that, and I had 40 that were red and 10 that were green, that
Yep.
if I, instead of saying, oh my goodness, this is overwhelming, I'm paralyzed, if instead I picked two or three of those
Right.
and I fixed and addressed them, and I was able to go to 15 green,
Right.
and then slowly increase that, that was a good path that was productive and useful and successful at delivering outcomes, and outcomes being people getting out of poverty.
Right. And what it does is it breaks, a whole life down into bite-sized pieces. So I
Yeah.
have there, and we have red, yellow, and green as you described. So red is suffering, yellow is surviving, green is thriving. And there's a short description for each indicator and then a picture that depicts it. And what it does is someone looking at it can see, oh, I'm here. And at the same time, they see, oh, but I could be here. And in
Mm.
doing that, it creates a sense of a desire to, be at a better place.
Motivation
Or-
and the thing, and it looks achievable.
Right. It's achievable. It has to be achievable. It has to be something they can act on themselves and something that they could do to get there. So achievable as well. And so they go through the assessment, 50 different indicators. At the end, they get a dashboard with all, as you said, all their reds, yellows, and greens. And the first thing we do is focus on the greens. You know, these
Mm.
are these are
Strength
things.
based.
These are the strengths you have in your life. These are things
Right.
you can build on. Congratulations. Let's count your blessings here because you have things in your life that are going well. And the most common reaction we get to that is, I didn't realize I had so many greens,
Hmm.
because we
Good.
all of us spend our life focused more on the things that are going wrong than the things that are going right. And
Right.
so to be able to sit down and look, I do have things that are going well in my life. I'm proud of
Right.
myself for that.
As opposed to, how could I possibly get out of poverty? I have a felony and I don't have a driver's license.
Right.
Well, let's talk about what you do have and recognize that
Right.
while
Right.
we build you.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a network. You have people you can depend on. You have goals you're aiming for. And then they're asked to look at the reds and yellows. Pick two or three that you want to work on now, as you were describing. But what are the things
Well,
you want to work on? So I want to get my driver's license, and I want to get a certification so I can get a job. And so then there's a bank of solutions that are linked to it. So here are different providers. Here's someone who can help you with the driver's license.
hmm,
Here's some different courses you could take for the certification, that would help you do that. And so it it helps people get unstuck by being able to
that's
look and say, here's one thing I can do now. And then that creates momentum when they come back and take another assessment and they see, as you said, as you see
improvements.
things changing and say, oh, I did this now. Now these are green. What am I going to work on
Hmm.
next? What's the next one I'm going to pick up and work on?
It's so cool because, for decades, I've been treating people with substance use disorders. And
Yep.
a lot of people I talk to are like, I don't know where to stop. Or I don't know where to start. This is impossible. I know me and I'll never be able to change. And for me, I'm very relaxed. I'm like, please have a seat. I'm going to be able to help
Right.
take you through this. And I'm
Right.
very confident because I've been doing this for a long time. I know the tools, I know how to do it. It's amazing that I look at poverty as something that's inconceivable. There's no way to be able to help people through it. But you've now been spending decades on helping people move out of poverty.
Right.
And I could tell you're very calm and you're very confident that you actually can do it using your tool.
Well, it's not our tool that does it. It's the people themselves that do it. And that's it's the same thing in microfinance. We were providing a resource that helped people engage their own energy and creativity in positive ways. So It's
100% the same in
yeah,
addiction. I don't get anybody clean and
right, right,
sober.
right, right. You don't,
I have tools to be able to help
right.
them be successful, but it's totally doable. Um, what 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 are traditional approaches you see at trying to address poverty, and how does that contrast to your method?
So the traditional approach, one, it's based on what people lack. So you have to prove that you qualify for a benefit by what you don't have.
Hmm.
And it's siloed. So you go one place to get
Right.
housing, you go another place for addiction treatment, you go another place if you need job training, um, and it becomes. I mean, it's a full time job being a poor person just trying to figure out how to get the different benefits that
Right.
you might qualify for, and so it doesn't build on the initiative of the person, and it sees the person. It's like in medicine, you see this is a person with cancer, this is a person with kidney disease, and they're identified by their disease. It's the same thing in working in poverty. Often this is a homeless person, this is an addict, so on. Instead of seeing them as a whole person with their own life and relationships and their own agency, their own capability of making change, and starting with them seeing themselves and then them choosing. So in
Hmm.
most poverty programs, it's someone else who's choosing for the person in poverty, choosing whether or not you get what I have to offer you. And um, it's not, it takes the agency away from people. It's people providing for them rather than them choosing and following their own path. So this is, you know, the way I see it, if we want to change the way we address poverty in this country, there's three things we have to do. One, families need to choose for themselves what is the next best thing for them to work on. What's the path? And then institutions, whether it's government agencies or nonprofits, need to align behind and support those choices. Find ways to organize themselves to support what they're doing. And the third one is businesses. Um, Businesses need to understand that they have a role and they need to engage in understanding why people fall back into poverty. Right now in the United States, all the anti poverty work we do, and it's tremendous work being done, it helps 11 million people move out of poverty every year.
Okay.
The problem is
Great.
11 million people fall into poverty every year, and the line stays at the same
Ah.
level. And it's because people get out and they may get entry level jobs and then life happens to them and their car breaks down, child gets sick, they have to care for an elderly parent and they end up losing their job and going back to where they were. And if businesses could understand what are the challenges that their employees face outside the workplace and could organize themselves to support them, they could actually create more stable exits for people from poverty. We have a company in Texas, Zachary Corporation, that's using this. They do road construction, they build hotels, and then they also staff hotels. So they have 2,700 employees, and they started using Thrive Lights with their staff. And one of the things they found, they put a indicator in there. I mean, again, it was culled from the indicators came from their employees.
Hmm.
We asked them what. So one of them was estate planning, whether or not you had your final affairs organized, and um, it was red for everybody. I mean, it didn't matter if they're working in a corporate office or on a road crew. They none of them had their wills and trusts and all of that set up. So the company looked at the data and said, okay, we need to find something we can do to support our employees here. So they actually found they had an agreement. MetLife was supplying some of their benefits, and there was a benefit in there for that they didn't realize. And
Hmm.
so what they did, employee just has to call a number and go through an interview, and the company then develops the papers for them, and then
To do
Zachary.
their advanced directives and their will
Well,
and
right.
determine the beneficiaries and
Yep.
get that all in order.
And so employees
Hmm.
started doing it just, it was sort of something that was always in the back of their head, but it's going to be easy to do. So sort of frictionless, I might as well do it. What they found was it caused people to think about, what sort of legacy do I want to leave for my family?
Right.
And maybe I should take that budgeting class that the company offers. They told me about a guy he'd just been promoted to supervisor of his work crew. So he did what all newly promoted supervisors in Texas do. He went out and bought himself a Ford F-150 truck and rolled up onto the work site with it, and all the other workers were cheering him on his new truck. And then a couple weeks later, he takes his Thrive Lights assessment, and he's green in income, but he's red in budgeting and estate planning, um, and savings. So he does the estate planning. He turns that one green. Then he takes the budgeting class, and when he takes the budgeting class, he realizes I can't afford this truck.
Hmm.
I spent down all my savings to get it, and I'm falling behind every month now because of the payments I'm making. So next week he shows up in a used Nissan Frontier, and all the work crew are laughing at him for his toy truck. And he says, "Yeah, I got a toy truck, but I have a college savings plan for my children too."
Huh. Yeah, that's a hard one. And in general, I prefer to people figure that out on the front end.
Yeah,
But that's a great example of being able to help people, and that changes his trajectory,
right.
and as opposed to being in this state of treading water
Right.
financially and then in turn emotionally, he's
Yeah, the
actually able to
stress he was
turn into
under it. Yeah,
rebuilding.
yeah, and he could have easily, had to take a second job or something. It could have
Right.
cascaded for him, but now he was able to see and then able to choose.
It's interesting while talking to you. I work in homelessness and substance use, and we've helped over 4,000 people get out of homelessness,
Yeah,
but more unhoused. Homelessness has grown in Las
right,
Vegas since we've
right,
been at it,
right,
and similarly, people will look at us and be like, "Dave, what are you doing? I thought you were
right,
supposed to
right,
be
right.
helping."
You've been there all these years, and it's just gotten worse.
Right, but there's people coming in, while we're trying to help people out, and it's the same with poverty.
Yeah.
It's the same
Well,
with
and
homelessness.
we find so another example is from Department of Human Services from a county in North Carolina. They were using Thrive Lights, um, and the leader there decided to use it to turn their foster care provision unit into a foster care prevention unit.
Hmm.
So one day, a woman, one of her prevention staff is interviewing a woman who she has the child endangerment report. The police had found the woman sleeping in her car with her 5 children.
Hmm.
And so, it's their job to decide should the children be placed in protective custody or not. So they have the woman instead take the Thrive Lights assessment, and she's green for the children in school, and she's yellow in employment. And the interviewer asked her what's going on here, and she said, "Well, every day I drive to a gas station where they have a restroom, and I get my children cleaned up, and then I drive them to school, and then I go to work, and I work through my lunch hour so I can leave early to pick up my children from school when they're done." And they said, "So why are you living in your car?" And the woman pointed to the red on addictions, and she said, "My husband had surgery a year ago. came out addicted to the painkillers. And when he can't get his drugs, he gets violent. So I had to leave the house to keep the children safe.
Hmm.
And so I told you the second step is institutions need to align around people's choices. Well, this mother chose what she wanted to work on: safe housing, mental health care for herself, and then addiction treatment for her husband. And what they had done, the leader there had created a dream center where all these nonprofits work together. So all they had to do was take the mother and have her meet the different providers
In the Dream Center.
in the dream center. By
Hmm.
that night, she was in her own a new apartment
Oh.
with beds for the kids, with food in the pantry. And
Hmm.
then she took, another assessment months later, and her husband was in treatment, and the family was doing better. But it was because the woman could make her own, could tell her whole story
Right.
through Thrive Lights, make her choices of what she wanted, and then the county had organized a way for different providers to get around and help her implement her plan.
That's amazing. I love the tool conceptually. When we first talked, I told you as a conservative, I was really wary of anybody um, trying to make their goal lifting everybody out of poverty.
Yeah.
Uh, um, and I loved the judo or the jujitsu you use with me. And I was hoping you could help our listeners, understand that this isn't a democratic solution or a liberal solution. It's not a conservative or Republican solution. It's a tool to help people help themselves.
Right. I mean, no one wants to live in poverty, and it's
And
what
nobody wants people to live in poverty, but there
right.
is a question, is it my job?
Right. No, it's not your job to do it. It's your job to let people choose to
Mm-hmm.
encourage and empower them. It's when it's someone we know and love, we don't try and do everything for them. We try to support
Mm-hmm.
them, do things for themselves, to grow in their capacity to manage their own life. But somehow, in our way of caring for the poor, we enfeeble people in the way we do it now. And instead, we need to take that same love. I mean, it's what Martine always says. It's you know the Thrive Lights or the Poverty Stoplight. It's love in a assessment form.
Right.
It's human care. It's what's important to you. Well, what are the strengths you have that we can build on, and what's most important next, and how can we help you get there?
I loved what you said. And I was thinking, I have an employee, a single mom with 3 kids, who I'd saw a notice from our city that you could get your power bill covered. And the employee had come into me and she was like, "Oh, I just barely made rent, but now I got my power bill." And I was like, "Oh, why don't you check out this resource?" And she said, "Dave, they need me to come and spend a day there
Yeah.
and fill out these forms
Right.
to be able to
Right.
get my power covered for a month."
Right.
And to me, when you talked about that, our current systems, I think you used the word enfeeble, like
Right.
it hinders them, and it's actually going the wrong direction, because as opposed to working on making things better, she'd have to disengage for a day to
Right.
go
Right.
comply with these city municipal grant requirements and forms.
Right. And we're so afraid of giving a benefit to the wrong person that we put all these requirements in that and not only does she have to spend a day, but then the worker that she's working with has to spend all that time reviewing them. It was Hillary Cottam in the UK who analyzed this, and she said sometimes up to 3/4 of a provider's time is spent in the paperwork and the bureaucracy rather than actually caring for people.
Yeah, agreed. I fight to keep my uh I have 100 clinicians here and we do services, and it costs me about 15% of every dollar I get just to bill and get the
Right,
authorization and check
right,
that. And
right.
I've been in the insurance business for 40 years, and we have a bunch of efficient systems, so we're probably more efficient than
Yeah,
most. But it's
15% is
still
pretty good.
that well, and but it's still a cost I would way prefer to be using to deliver care.
Right, exactly. And
Hmm.
we're finding that we've got a group of addiction recovery centers in North Carolina that are using Thrive Lights. There's probably 15 of them now. Um,
Hmm.
and what they find is that it's very useful for the sort of discussions that your care providers have with the people in the program, because it centers the discussion around the person's own plans. That, I want to improve on this, I want to improve. So they do, frequent check-ins, to frequent reassessments, like every couple of months they'll do it again. But they've seen people come in with one who came in with 40 reds when he came in, and he even went through some surgeries while he was in care. And by the time he left, he had 4 yellows and the rest were green.
Great improvement, and it's a perfect tool to help measure that, because
Right,
what I used to run the largest commercial treatment center in Nevada, and that was mostly just psychiatry and counseling, helping people think differently and
right,
change. Running a homeless center, I need almost more case management than I do clinical and psychiatric
right,
care, because
right.
people need IDs and clothes
Yep,
and
yep,
Medicaid and food and transportation, and helping them through probably the 50
right.
elements
That's
of
right.
your tool.
Yeah,
That's what our unhoused clients need.
right, right. And
Hmm.
it's yeah, they unhoused clients have learned a way of managing life that you and I would find very difficult, but it's worked for them. But to a degree, it's worked. I mean, they've survived in a tough situation, but to change from that pattern to a different one, that's the work that you do that helps people sort of begin to see life differently, sort of, and not
Yeah.
escaping from it every day, but being present with it.
Right, but we're just one or maybe two of the indicators of your stoplight.
Right, right.
There's a lot more. Let me ask you about the element of personal agency. Could you discuss personal agency and how you leverage that to help people move out of poverty?
Um, so yeah, it's for any of us, it's a lot different when we've come up with an idea and we're implementing it. We're a lot more invested in making sure it works than if someone else is telling us what to do. And
Right.
and, and a lot of our care for people in poverty is people telling other people what to do. And and we need to, if people can make their own plans, if they can set their own goals, their targets, and then find support behind them, get some wind behind their sails, saying, "Look, I can help you with this. I can, I have a friend who does that." So, make the connections. Then it's this momentum, this sense of not only did I choose, but I'm accomplishing what I set out to do, and so it's building on a person's own energy and their own choices, but also giving them a sense of accomplishment that they are capable, which
Right.
which then leads to more motivation and
Right.
bigger challenges that they can take on.
I see so many parallels to my, again, I just call myself one indicator on your tool. Um, I have a lot of people who come in. My mom says I have to, my dad, oh, I'm doing this for my
Right,
kids, or the
right,
judge says I have to do this. And,
right,
and, to me, we're like, throw all of them out.
right,
Now
right,
let's talk
right,
about you,
right.
and how is this helping your job? How's it helping your relationships? How's it
Yeah,
helping your health? going through and trying to have the motivation come from within them. That's where the real change occurs.
And part of it is doing this whole life assessment. You go through the
Mm.
50 indicators, and most of us don't have that many chances to step back and look and say, how's my life going, and where am I really happy with where I am, and
Right.
and where are the things that I'm not where I want to be, and what do I want to work on. So just having the space to step back and look is an important part of the tool, and then the choice, and then the support to accomplish the choices. I think they all work together, because I think it's helpful to reflect, and in your case, as much as anybody, it's people have sort of stepped back from life and not wanted to deal with it, and now are facing the consequences of that and trying to figure out where did I
Oh,
go wrong, and what do I do to set things right.
and it happened incrementally, so they often
Right.
didn't notice it occurring
Right.
in
Right.
their life. Now you did grad school at Harvard. You're a smart guy. You know about poverty. If you could change the way our country looks at poverty and homelessness, what would you change?
Yeah, the first thing I would do is, you know, believe in people,
Hmm.
help them assess themselves, make their own choices, and then let's reward people for making progress. Right now, our system penalize
Oh,
people when they start doing better. There's this benefits cliff that people
right,
go when you get a job, and all of a sudden you lose your insurance, and you lose your housing, uh,
right.
because you're doing the right thing. So let's arrange a system that first helps people to see themselves, make their own choices, and then rewards them when they are contributing back to society rather than penalizing them.
Boy, are you right on there. How do we do that?
I Yeah, it what this woman I talked about, Hillary Cottam, does is in the UK is she when someone's receiving government benefits, she lets them create their own board of directors of people from the different services that they need.
Okay.
And then they meet every month or so, and these people serve as the advance guard, helping them get through the system to get what they need, and help
Hmm.
and assisting them to make a smooth exit as well. And I think if we followed her model more, um, use tools like Thrive Lights, and then put people in charge of their development, we could get a lot farther with this. And then the other thing I think is having some sort of reward for companies that take real care of their employees, that look beyond the paycheck and look at what are the other challenges. Some way of recognizing that, instead of having the government subsidize Walmart's employees by paying for their health care. We should have the government encouraging companies like Zachary, who really look out for their employees and make sure that that they're not paying such small wages that people rotate in and out and fall in and out, but
Right.
are actually building stable jobs.
It's interesting. We're actually going the other way, where 20 years ago we mostly had an employment-based healthcare system,
Right.
and and over the last 20 years we've migrated away from that, where more people are getting their health insurance from a government agency versus from an employer,
Yeah.
um, and also making people uh, less attached to their employer, and hopefully the growth that comes there. We still got a lot of work to do, Larry.
Yeah. 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 I had a friend that he said he had a deal with the Lord that he was going to uh, he was going to stay alive until poverty ended. And I thought, boy, I'm not sure I want to be that old. But
Hmm.
I do think just people, if you spend time like you do with people who are struggling,
Hmm.
you
8 to
see
5 every day.
you see the energy that's there. You see it's,
Yeah.
and you can see what a difference it makes when people care for them and
Hmm.
allow them to there's some things that they need to get on the path, but when they do, everyone benefits.
Yep.
It's not
100%.
just, I mean, they're working, they're caring for children, they're serving their community.
Right.
It's um and if we saw that
Breaking generational cycles.
right, exactly.
Um, I, I, I call this podcast Human Up.
Yeah.
And the way I close it each time is I ask, Larry, what does human up mean to you?
It means treat everyone like a human being.
Hmm.
It's the people that are struggling in our country, in our world, are people like you and me,
Hmm.
and they deserve love and support just like you and I do. But they are also capable and energetic, and people who can make good choices when they have the right support behind them. Um, and so let's not these as problems to be solved. These are human beings who have the chance to move up, who can who might care, who will be caring for another human in the
Right.
future.
Amen. Well, I thank you for spending the last 42 minutes with me.
Yeah,
I learned
you'll have
some
to edit this
more.
out.
This was great. Thanks for being a guest on Human Up. My name's Dave Marlon, and I'm honored to have had Harry Reed on today. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dave.